And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Mike Gregg. This is a special episode of Cottage Talk. I'm calling it Stats Are Not for Losers. It's a show all about stats and how they affect Fulham Football Club, where Fulham are with certain stats. Reason why I'm bringing Mike on is if you follow Mike on Twitter, you know that he shares some really good stats about Fulham, where they are in the league, where they project. We're going to go through that. I also have some other stats I'm going to share as well with Mike in about a half-hour show. This should be fun. Before we go on any further, just want to mention, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Okay. Well, Mike, let's get going with this show. So first of all, thank you so much for joining me. I've had you on several times, and it's always good to have you on. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this is when I first met you in person in New York City, the one thing that stood out from our conversation is talking about stats, talking about where Fulham were in the league, which at that time was not really good in the championship, and how it projected outward. So I thought we would do this again with Fulham in the Premier League, but let's start with your preseason targets, Mike, because you do some wonderful graphs throughout the season. Let's start where you saw where Fulham needed to be to survive in the league and where we take it from here.
Hi, Russ. Yeah, good to be on the show again. And yeah, happy to talk about what I post. I will first of all say there's some other accounts out there that dig a lot deeper into some of the stats. I try to sort of go a little bit broad. So, I'll give a shout out to Cottage Analytic, who I think does some great stuff with
excellent stuff.
Monte Carlo simulations and stats from that. And so I'd certainly recommend listeners follow him as well. But those who have followed me over the last, 6-7 years, maybe longer, will know that I tend to set targets and then follow the season as it progresses. Mine are projections for how the season will end, sort of points wise. I never really try to predict where teams will finish, but I will look at a league structure and sort of guess where those points would be and what you need to do to get promoted, or a lot of the time over recent years is stay up in the Championship and the Premier League. So I always enter the season with one target. So this year, promotion again. And can we stay up? And so my initial target, everyone sort of says, Premier League, it's 40 points. That's what you need to be looking at. And my target was 38. So I reckoned if we got 38 points, then we would stay up. So my reasoning behind that is the Premier League's been going, I think it's 27 years. And 11 times a team have got 39 points or more to be 17th, and then only 4 times in the last 10 years. So more than average. If you get 38, you're going to stay up. So the league has to be really tight for you not to. So that's my original target. And as we stand today, in a very nice position in 6th place on 31 points. And I said it on Twitter the other day when I did it, I'm not even going to look at relegation anymore. So, we are, for us to get relegated now, Russ, we would need to be worse than Derby were in their season when they got 11 points. So, even if we suddenly become the worst team in the league, we will somehow scramble and stay up. So we're on 31 after 20 games. We have played more than the other teams, but if you look at where we are now, so if we talk about relegation first, Russ,
right? Yes.
So my prediction now, looking at the table and the way things are, it's really close. The bottom 7 teams are as close as any have been over the years. 2 points separating all 7 teams. you would usually expect about this time just the bottom five. But and there's no team that's getting battered. Southampton at bottom, they've got 15. All the bottom three have got 15. So I'm looking at, if you get 34 points, you're staying up. That's how low I think it's going to be. Now, historically, teams at the bottom, at the halfway stage, tend to score more points in the second half of the season. So if you're on 15, you're likely to get, or that position is likely to be 32 maybe,
Right.
So you could almost argue we've stayed up now, which is great. But that's what I think it will pan out to be at the end of the season. So if you're listening to this and you're a fan of another team at the bottom, then that's your target. Get to 34 and I think you'll stay up.
Okay. So what's interesting about this, and again, why I love doing this with you, Mike, is when we look a little bit deeper into the numbers, like you said, your projections have gone down from initially being 38. Now you're figuring 34. Let me ask you, do you think it's because the league is more competitive or league being down? I would lean towards maybe the former, being more competitive. The teams are more even. There's more money in the Premier League, or are there more teams that are crap? There are two ways to look at it.
No, so I think the league now is I think it's a really balanced league. So you have those top six, the big six, if you like, and Newcastle are edging towards making it the big seven, isn't it?
Right.
Then you have that middle group, and now you've got a very balanced bottom 6 or 7. All very much the same, and so you've got these 3 divisions almost within the one league, and we're currently top of that second group, if you like.
Right.
And I think it's the yo-yoing of teams. We're being the prime example, but teams are learning and they're getting the money, and it's the parachute money, and I think it has helped teams like us eventually to be in a position where we are now. And even if you look at Forest, who are, how many teams have they bought this year? 3, is it? Or they're going to buy another team.
Right, exactly.
But if you throw enough money at it, you're going to, you're going to have a really good chance of staying up. So I think there's actually more of a gap at the top. I think that, you look at the top 4 teams or the table at the moment, and they've all got more points than the last couple of years. And then you look at the bottom, it's more compressed. So it's probably the standard is slightly better and the teams are more even than maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. And we'll do this in future seasons, Mike. Let's hope that Fulham have a very long run in the Premier League. That's what we always hope for. But what I always find interesting, and maybe I don't know if this is a statistical situation, but I'm fascinated by the situation with someone like West Ham, and that has had such a great season, and Wolves too. They can, I was speaking to a Wolves blog supporter who was telling me that what we're experiencing now is what they experienced 4 or 5 seasons ago. And then the problem was they weren't able to keep their key players. The case with West Ham's a little bit different, but it just shows how quickly it can ebb and flow from being in the top half to the bottom half very quickly.
I mean, you've got it's the decisions they make in the summer, isn't it? The main transfers, but also it is luck, and and it is competitive, as we were just saying, or it's certainly teams at the same level. So a few bad results and you find yourself down there. Yeah, West Ham have had 2 good seasons.
Yeah.
Have they built on it? Are they trying to just carry on from what they had last year? And then you see where they are now. And, we're doing great. Absolutely brilliant this year. But is the glass ceiling going to be that 6, top 6, top 7 teams? And then we've got to improve. So we're doing great this year. We've got to keep the key players, and I would say we need to look at 4 players in the summer, and those 4 players have to be of the quality of someone like Pelini, who joined us this year and has shown
Right.
the level, the difference in level in quality. Otherwise, yes, next year a couple of results going the wrong way, and you find yourself struggling at the bottom. So it's really tough for all the teams outside those big, big money earners. And but yeah, I'm not. Everton have bobbed along, and finally it's caught up with them. And
Yeah.
and also you've got to look at the managers. I mean, we could spend a whole show talking about Moyes and Lampard, couldn't we? And whether they're, so.
Right.
But it's competitive, and that's why we like the Premier League. We don't like some of the other stuff, the money side and VAR and other things. But the one thing you cannot say about the Premier League is it isn't competitive.
It is, Mike. It's extremely competitive, and that's why I love it, and why this season has been fascinating for Fulham. Now, talking about stats, because if you project forward, I was speaking on our last show with Craig and Giannis, and basically I was saying to them, maybe I'm jumping ahead. Maybe I'm thinking, well, why can't we push for Europe? Is it possible? And Craig, who is a financial wizard in his own way, says, well, Russ, ultimately it's going to be very difficult. Let's pump the brakes on it, because for us to be in a European spot, it's possible, but he doesn't find it that likely just because of, I guess you could say, the teams around us. There are probably many factors, Mike, but how can Fulham end the season in a European spot? How difficult would it be, do you think, statistically, for them to do this? What type of form would they need to be in the top 6 or top 7?
Okay, so I mean, we are in a little bit of a false position. We've played a game or 2 more than the other teams, and really we're probably 8th, to be honest, if we were going to be really honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think 7th qualifies for Europe if we win certain cups and things like that. At the moment, I'm projecting 60 points for 7th place and 61 for 6th, and that is. The 61 for 6th is pretty much the average, but 7th is a couple of points higher than usual. And so if you look at it from where we are now, if you say to me, oh, we want to get 61 points, then we need to play better than we're playing now. We need to be getting better results, just slightly. But we have to have a better second half of the year almost.
Okay.
And so we need to be like consistently the 6th best team for the rest of the year. And that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
I agree, Mike. And it's funny because when Craig said that, it kind of burst my bubble a little bit, but then I really thought about it. He's being realistic, and I'm not being realistic. I'm being, a fan, right? I'm being a fan. I'm thinking I got Europa League in my head, and I'm jumping ahead,
Well, I mean, but that's good, and you've got to have that desire to do that. I mean, I mentioned Cottage Analytica earlier, and his simulations say about, I think it's 14% to qualify for Europe. So there's a chance, there's definitely a chance. And when you look at, Brighton and Brentford below us, are we better teams than them? Potentially, yes. We're certainly on a par with them.
Right.
But then you have Liverpool hovering around just below all 3 of us. So, and Chelsea, of course.
I was going to say, I hate to say Chelsea too. So
yeah, and no matter how they have bad form, these teams, because they have that winning mentality as well and all that experience, will somehow find a way to get back above us all, probably. But you hold on to hope, and so for me, realistically, Russ, my target now is 54 to make it the highest number we've achieved. And, you know, if we can get 54 points, then, you know, we're going to be looking at 8th or 9th probably. Probably 9th. And that would still be a great achievement. You know.
Absolutely.
And we should do that. So to get 54, we just need to now be the 12th or 13th best team for the rest of the year,
right.
which we
That's
clearly
realistic.
are.
Right. That is realistic. I'm being a little bit not realistic, but like you said, Cottage Analytica says 14%. I'm banking on the 14%. I'll take it. I'll take it, Mike. I'll take it. Excellent. Excellent, my friend. All right. So the second half of this quick show, I want to just share some positions where Fulham are and some stats. And I want to get your thoughts on how they play going forward, because I find them interesting. I got these from whoscored.com. So here's some whoscored.com stats where Fulham are within the league. So Fulham are tied for 7th in goals, Mike. So what does that tell you? I found that an interesting stat. I didn't realize we were that high. So does that surprise you?
I mean, there's a bunch there of teams, you know, 32, 33, but no, it did surprise me when I had a look at it earlier as well. You know, we're happy with where we are, but yeah, the point. There is a rule, Russ. There's a rule of thumb: a point for every goal. So 32, we're on 31. You know, it's. I stand by that rule a little bit, and.
Okay.
And then you look at a whole bunch of them who haven't even reached 20 yet. So, you know, it's under silver, isn't it? You know, it is attack. It's not attack, but it's, you know, the freedom is there for the team to do this, and it's working. It's getting results. I have a few questions about how many shots we allow against us and that kind of thing. But, you know, attack is sometimes the best defense, and that seems to be our way.
Absolutely, Mike. It's funny because I'm not 100% sure of this, but I saw this on Twitter. This is going off of my grid here, but I saw someone tweet today, expected goals against Fulham are 20th. Now, I don't know if this is accurate, but that is a shocking stat, if that is true, that we're last in the league in expected goals against, Mike. What are your thoughts about that, if that is true?
Okay, I haven't seen a table recently, but I know we were near the bottom, and it is a worry. You know, you have Leno as well, who's the goalkeeper who's made the most saves per game on average, and our own eyes tell us that the saves he's making are winning us the points. So there is in the back of my mind that worry that we just give too many chances away.
Yeah.
And when we talk about next year and building on this year, we could have a whole show about, you know, where to improve. But I certainly think we need to do something to stop those many chances falling to the opponents.
Totally agree, Mike. Okay. So here's another stat that goes with goals, shots per game. So Fulham are 10th. So I think this might go to where you kind of believe where they're going to end up in the league. They're 10th in shots, so they're creating some very good opportunities. That's kind of where I think they might end up, anywhere between the 8th and 10th. So what does it tell you that they're 10th in shots?
That we're bang average on the number of shots we're creating. But I think our conversion rate is above average as well. So, you know, when I talk about where I think we'll finish, the stats point to that kind of middle range, sort of 9, 10, 11. I think we'll be at the upper end of that. And we're overachieving a little bit at the moment.
Okay, very good, Mike. Okay, so here are 3 very interesting stats. I'm going to change it up. I was going to go with the possession stats, but I'm going to go to this one. This one actually very much surprised me because under Slavisa, we were probably one of the worst, Mike. Fulham are 7th in aerials 1. I was surprised by this. What are your thoughts? I mean, obviously, you have Mitro, but what do you make of this stat?
Well, I mean, that's going to be Ream and Pelini. and the other centre backs who have been playing as well.
Yep.
I mean, they are winning the headers, that's for sure. And we've got that extra aggression in the middle, and then of course you have Mitrovic up top. So I'm not over surprised at that. I mean, when you look at what the other teams are achieving as well, we're in very good company, and doing well in that kind of position. And it's a strength of ours, and we play on it for sure.
Okay. Let's see. Let's move on, Mike. Let's now talk about two stats that, going back to our friend Slavisa Jokanovic, I don't think he would be very happy with these. And this is where I really want to get into how Fulham are playing, Mike. Fulham are 13th in possession. I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise. It shouldn't be a shock, but it's different than what we were accustomed to in the championship. But it makes sense that we are like this in the Premier League. What are your thoughts that the fact that we're 13th in possession?
Yeah, it has been a change from last year. And it's happened every time we've come. Well, I don't know. Under Parker, maybe we had the ball a bit more, but just did less with it. It's not a surprise, with a new team that's come up, and but we're very much a counter attack as well at times, and we soak up the pressure. We're dealing with pressure, and then we're away, and with the wingers we have, and the pace they have, it's working for us. I'm not that surprised. I would actually hope next year that would increase and we would become the team with a little bit more possession. So yeah, I'd like us to be a bit closer to 50% for sure.
I agree with that, Mike. Okay, and going hand in hand with that, passing percentage, we're 14th. So this used to be number one or number two, Mike. I'm just so used to that. Obviously, it's different when you get to the Premier League, but I think this one's a little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, but it's. I think you've got to look. We've gone a little bit more. I'm not going to use the word direct as in just going long, but we're looking at. There's a lot of cross-field passing from the fullbacks and from the centre backs, well, certainly from the centre backs, looking for each fullback or winger. So we're going forward a bit more. So we gamble a bit more, but then also it's clearing from the back. Less heart attack time. So, but you're playing against better teams. Better teams are probably intercepting the passes better and reading them better.
Okay, very good. Okay, so Mike, those are the stats that I really had for you. But while we finish up the show, and I mentioned we'll end with a prediction for the rest of the season. So you've looked at the stats, you've watched Fulham this season, and I'm curious, the biggest thing that surprised you this season. What is the biggest thing that surprised you?
I mean, a bit. I mean, I because I targeted 38. People think, oh, that's where you think you're going to be. That's not the thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll take 17 from the beginning of the season to stay up. But I suppose the biggest surprise. Well, there's two things. One is how some of the players who we would consider top of the championship have gone up a level. So I'm thinking, Bobby Reid,
Ream
especially has been, I'll hold my hands up, and I'm someone who has not deleted the tweets I've made in the summer.
I'm there too, Mike. My hands up.
Yeah, I didn't think he was capable of playing the way he is, and everything leads back to Silva. And so the thing that surprised me is he has kept pretty much the same kind of formation and the same mentality of the way we did last year. So he's carried that forward. And I saw an interview with Mitrovic, which I'm sure you read the other day, where he spoke about we don't worry about other teams. We don't change our style. It's we play the same way, whoever. And I suppose going back, we talk about experience of a Premier League manager, which is what Silva has, and maybe that's what he's learned. You you have your beliefs, you put your team out, they all know what they've got to do, and you're not chopping and changing, and it breeds the results and the style that we're playing in now.
It's interesting, Mike. I think this is the biggest surprise for me is what you just said. I was not expecting us to still be on the front foot, partially because of what happened under Savisa, and he tried not the same approach, not the crazy gung-ho approach of Savisa. There are some more defensive tactics here under Marco Silva, but I did not think that he would try to go toe-to-toe, and you knew it on the first match against Liverpool. He did that. This team plays with no fear, Mike. And I thought they would back off, and they have not. They've not changed their style whatsoever. They're just playing against more talented sides. And that, to me, is the most pleasant surprise about this. The most enjoyable part is that I know going into this match, win, lose, or draw, they're going to be in it, except for that Newcastle match at home for obvious reasons. Name another team that they've played against that they've not been in. And that, to me, it starts at Silva.
Yeah, no, it's the one game. The Newcastle game is the one blip that we all look at, and that's not bad out of 20 games. So, but yeah, I mean, you go back to Jokanovic when he came up and, changed quite a few things. We brought in players in the summer, but a core of the team was still the same.
Right.
And I think we talk about lessons learned, and I think that was definitely one. And I would expect going into next year, similar, not massive changes, just slotting in good quality players to replace good ones that we have at the moment.
Okay, very good, Mike. All right, to finish up this episode, I'm going to share my prediction, and then I'll go to you, Mike, for the rest of the season. I haven't done this yet, so even though I would love 6, Mike, I'm not going to go with 6 because Craig really just knocked it out of me the other day. So I'm going to say 8th. I'm going to go with 8th. I think it's possible. I think it's possible to end the season 8th, and I would be thrilled with 8th. I would be thrilled with 17th, to be honest with you, to start the season. But my expectations have changed a little bit. So I'm going to say 8th, Mike. How about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to say 7th for me is possible. But I do think it's going to take its toll. If we don't bring any players in, which I'm not too fussed about, I think we could tail off and end 8th or 9th. Okay. So, I'm going to sit on the fence there, 8th or 9th.
Okay. And honestly, Mike, I'll take that every day of the week right now, to be honest with you. From what we've experienced the last 2 times in the Premier League, anything above 17th is gravy, as we would say. It's gravy. It's fantastic. But then you get greedy. I'm getting greedy. I want a European run. Okay, I'm sorry. I do. I do. But I need to be right. I need to be a little patient. I have problems with patience, Mike, if you haven't noticed. So we are going to wrap up the show. Mike, thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
No, it's fine, Russ, anytime. And I'll just keep plugging away with the stats and posting them up. And if anyone has any questions, just drop me a line.
Okay, fantastic. Just want to mention, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. I have another show tomorrow. I have so many shows coming up, Mike. I've done 17 in a row. I think I'm starting to lose my mind, but I'm enjoying it. The next show is actually going to be with Jack and Loss, and I'm going to do 5 takeaways for the season so far with Jack and Loss. That should be fun.
Well, that should be a good show, Russ.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I love the ladies. Then I'm going to do another transfer show. I've got a bunch of Tottenham shows. My head is spinning, but I'm loving every minute of it. All right, Mike. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right. No problems. Have a good evening, Russ.
Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. For my very special co-host, Mike Gregg, I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.